Happy Friday. We are just starting our Art of Senior Fitness Program Design Part 3 today. Just checking to see if all of our different platforms are live. We are on LinkedIn and Facebook today, and we still have a couple minutes, so if you want to grab your lunch or coffee, feel free to do that. Let's see. I think we are good on Facebook. Oh, maybe not. That's last week's. Perfect. Okay, good on Facebook. And let's see about LinkedIn. Okay, we are live on both platforms. So good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. We do still have 2 minutes before we officially get started at 12:30 Eastern, 10:30 Mountain, or 9:30 Pacific. So if you need a couple minutes to grab your lunch, grab your morning coffee, whatever that might be, please feel free to go do that. And if you've only just clicked on a little notification that said Emily was live and you're like, hey, what is this? What is she doing? This is the Art of Senior Fitness Program Design. And it is a series. We're on part 3. And really it's designed for anyone who works with seniors, whether that's in a recreation, fitness, wellness capacity, or if you're an individual who manages or supervises individuals in those roles. Or if you just want to work with seniors in the future, you want to learn a bit about the industry or some things to build your resume and your skill set, then definitely join us. We do have 1 more minute officially before we get started. As we go through today, if you have any questions, you want to give us any comments, best practices that have worked well for you, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll check periodically to see if we've got any questions or if we've got any comments. And there's a lot behind the scenes here. You can't see what my setup is, but I've got my computer in front of me. I've got a second screen. I've got an iPad that is tracking your comments and questions. So I apologize if you ask a question and I don't get to it right away. Okay, well, it is 12:30 Eastern Standard Time on the dot, so we'll start to get into it. So we're going to spend the next 30 minutes together, and I'm very excited about this topic. I'm excited about all of our topics, but today we're talking about outcome-based programming. And just to kind of recap where we've been, in part 1, we talked about, oh, let's move my slides forward here. Already having tech, there we go. Oh, no, let's go back. Previous. Next. Huh. Okay. That's not the next slide, but that's okay. Oh, you know what? There we go. Okay, crisis averted. We always have to have at least 1 technical difficulty to keep me on my toes. All right, so in part 1 of the Art of Senior Fitness Program Design, we talked about some common myths around aging and exercise. And then we talked about Canada's physical activity guidelines. And I know so many of you have no problem rattling these off, but we tried to talk about the nitty-gritty details of truly reaching these guidelines. And the way we went through those nitty-gritty details was through the FIT principle, or a FIT audit. So if you didn't get a chance to watch part 1, that's okay. Still join us for today. But a lot of these principles do build on one another. So if you're on Facebook or you're on LinkedIn, feel free to head to the Stronger You Senior Fitness Facebook and LinkedIn pages. Follow us or like us so you can get all the notifications about these lives. And then last week, we talked about having something for everyone in your program. So how to build in the 7 dimensions of wellness in order to create a program that not only is physically engaging with physical benefits, but intellectual, social, emotional, spiritual, vocational, emotional, environmental. I think I got them all there. And that was part 2. So once again, if you didn't get to see that, then feel free to go check that out in the feeds on LinkedIn or Facebook. But today, as I said, we are going to talk about outcome-based programming. And outcome-based programming really has 3 parts to it. The first is goals. In order for us to reach outcomes, we have to start with goals. Next, we have assessments and then results. So let's start from the top. Goals are going to be the things that you or your participants are looking to achieve by either planning a program or for your participant by taking a program. Then we're going to use assessments as our tools to figure out, are we reaching our goals? Are we moving towards them? And ultimately, what are our results or our outcomes? Okay. So I want to start with goals. And sometimes I'll hear from fitness or recreation professionals, you know, my seniors, they don't really want to set goals. They just love exercise. And that might be true on a very superficial level, but everyone has a reason why. As humans, we do things for a purpose, even if, like I said, on that superficial level, we ourselves don't even know what it is. So I always encourage individuals, recreation professionals, fitness professionals, to really give your participants a little push and dig a little bit on what is the reason why. Why are they coming to your fitness program? And a way to kind of start this conversation is by giving them some suggestions. Do they want to increase their overall level of fitness? Do they want to increase the number of times per week that they're exercising? Do they have a recent fall and they want to improve their balance? Or have they started to feel really stiff and would like to increase their flexibility, their range of motion? Is there a specific task that they want to work towards? Maybe they want to be able to get better at something, or maybe something is getting more difficult that they want to try to regain or keep. So those are some suggestions. And still at this point, your participant, your older adult you're working with, still might not choose a goal. So some pressing questions that you might want to use to pull out of them and to dig and see what their why is, what would your quality of life be like if you had more strength, better endurance, better flexibility? What would that mean for your life? What's something that you haven't been able to do in a long time that you wish you could do again? Or what's something that's getting more difficult to do that through exercise we can maintain or improve that activity for you? So really, it's all about quality of life. And once we have this information, we're then able to advise that person on what kinds of programming they should be doing in order to reach those goals. So when you have goals, we can then tailor the program to the individual. And as we know, goals should always be SMART. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So let's have an example today of a older adult in your fitness class, and let's say they're going on a family trip to Mexico. And they really want to keep up with their older grandchildren and their sons and daughter, or their family, their friends. And maybe part of that is they're going to be going on an excursion. They're going to be eating at the buffet. So that is a goal where we might suggest a specific programming outline for that person. So definitely things like joining a walking club because they want to be able to walk on that excursion, lower body strengthening to help them wait in line at the buffet, upper body strengthening when they fill up that plate at the buffet with all that delicious food. So goals don't have to be specifically physical. They can be experiential. They can be goals for active living, and those are typically the most powerful goals because they can be quite emotional and hit us really deep. And a result of that person's going to be very motivated to work towards that goal. Another goal might be, let's say you're working in senior living, and let's say you have a resident who is starting to struggle to walk from their room, which is maybe you have a very large building and it's at one end, way at the end of the building, and they're finding it's taking them a long time to get to the dining room. Let's say. So maybe they want to decrease the time it takes them to walk to the dining room to 5 minutes, and they want to be able to do that by March. Okay, so that again seems like a really good goal. It's specific. They want to walk to the dining room. It's measurable. We can measure how long it's currently taking them, and then we can at regular intervals do tests to see if that time is getting better. We'll come back to achievable and realistic, but it is a timely goal because they have said that they want to be able to do that by March. And to go back to achievable and realistic, this is where we start to segue into the assessment piece. So it's really great to have goals and then to look at outcomes, but we need a way to assess our progress. And so first thing, before we try to get to a destination, we have to know where we are currently. And for that individual, maybe right now it's taking them 20 minutes with 2 breaks to get from all the way one end of the building to the dining room. So to say in 2 months, I want to be able to cut that time down to 5 minutes, that might not be a realistic and achievable goal in the time frame that that person has set the goal. And so that's where you as the recreation or fitness professional use the data that we get from the assessment to then give them the advice on what is a more realistic or what are the baby steps to get to that big goal. So for that person, it might be that, okay, taking you 20 minutes, let's try to get down to 20 minutes, but maybe you're only taking 1 break. So you just take your time, and when you need that break, try to only take 1 break and then make it the rest of the way. Maybe then it's no breaks. Maybe then you're getting there in 10 minutes or 15 minutes, then it's down to 8, then it's down to 5. So we do want to set up our participants for success, and we do that by giving them some advice on their goals based on their physical ability. Now, you might have participants who just want to increase their overall level of fitness. And I love the senior fitness test. Part of my career for I think 7 years was conducting fitness testing with participants in both the community and senior living settings. I probably conducted over 300 worked with 300 individuals, each of which had multiple fitness tests. And I really loved not only the results for the individual, but the data it gave me as a fitness professional that I could then use to tailor programs to specific individuals, to make changes to overall programs to benefit the whole group. So we're going to talk about the senior fitness test today, or the Fullerton functional test. And I'm just going to pause there for a moment. I'm just going to check in on our platforms, see if we have any questions. Nope, we look good. Feel free to put them on there if you need to. Okay, so let's talk about the senior fitness test, also called the Fullerton functional test because it was developed by Roberta Rickley and Jesse Jones at Fullerton University in California. And it's made up of, let's see there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tests. Okay, so we're going to go through these tests. I love this senior fitness test because it's very comprehensive. So it's going to give us kind of a full picture of the body and different components of functional mobility, and it's pretty easy to administer. I would say on average it probably took me between 15 and 20 minutes to administer to one person. And anyone who knows me knows I'm a talker, so probably that time could be cut down if I didn't talk so much about kind of results after each test and the why and all that sort of thing. So pretty easy and timely to administer and very comprehensive. So the first test is the sit to stand test. And actually these tests can go in any order. If you find your participant is getting a bit breathy or needs a break, you might go to back and forth between strength, flexibility, or mix in the agility or the cardiovascular routines. So the sit to stand test, exactly as it says, you're going to sit to stand, and this is to assess lower body strength. And in this test, the individual must cross their arms. I know in my photo I've chosen the arms aren't crossed, but this was a pretty good photo. And we are going to count how many sit to stands they can complete in 30 seconds. And especially if you're in senior living, I know throughout these next slides, you're probably going to be thinking, oh, I don't know if my people can do this. And like I said, I have fitness tested over 300 individuals. Many of them were skeptical that they were going to be able to perform the test, and they actually really surprised themselves, which I think is very cool for their motivation and education for where they are at in their current fitness level. They're maybe not realize that they could do it. So even if they have the arms crossed and they struggle to get out of that chair, usually they can complete quite a few versus maybe what they thought at the beginning. So this is just a little sample, and I'll go through this for each of them. I've kind of gone back and forth between male and female results, but let's say you have an individual you're fitness testing, they're 82, and they were able to do 12 sit-to-stands. So we would go down to their age, and then we would go across to how many they were able to complete. And so in this case, 82, 12 repetitions, they would be average. Now, I do recommend if you want to perform the senior fitness test, you do buy the senior fitness test manual off of Human Kinetics Publishers, also available on Amazon. Believe it's around $70 to $80 Canadian, but I would say it's a really good resource and well worth the money to go in to purchase that resource. There's also lots of resources online that tell you how to conduct these individual tests, and that will give you scoring sheets like the one I have here as well. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the next one is the arm curl test, and this is to assess your upper body strength. In this test, you're going to complete as many bicep curls, so just like in the photo, as possible in 30 seconds. For this test, women use a 5-pound weight and men use an 8-pound weight. And you do need to stick to these guidelines because all of the results are backed by research based on these parameters. And again, I think more for those of you in senior living who might be joining us, you're thinking, oh, I don't think my women are going to be able to do that 5-pound weight, or men to do that 8-pound weight. I don't even know if we have an 8-pound weight in our building. And I won't go on my typical rant when it comes to weights, but 1 and 2-pound weights, which I know are being used quite a bit in senior living, they're really not functional. I talked about, going to Mexico and holding your plate of food. That plate empty probably weighs a pound. Ladies' purses, I just got back from Winnipeg yesterday, and I had my purse, I had my laptop bag, I think I had a bag of snacks, and I was carrying some serious weight. So really functionally, most people in their daily lives are lifting more than 5 or 8 pounds. Now, I have had individuals who during this test are like, whoa, no way, I can't do 5 pounds. And I'm like, yes, you can do it. Trust me. I'm going to put it in your hand and we're going to try it. And I don't just flop the weight into their hand and, let them go, oh. I gently put the weight in their hand. I allow them to come to that straight arm position, make sure they're good. And then I say, okay, give it a try. And, some of them go, oh, like it is heavy, but then they start to do the bicep curls and they're actually doing great. And they do, again, surprise themselves about what they're capable of. So the only exception to this would really be if a doctor told them that they had a restriction on what they could lift. And that might be to mostly probably due to surgery or a recent procedure, but typically after a period of time that will go away. So if there are any doctor prescribed restrictions, then please feel free to have them use whatever weight is allowed. Just the scoring will not come out the way that you hope, but you can still say, hey, they used 1 pound last time and they were able to do 15 reps. Now they had 1 pound again and they were able to do 20 reps. So we can still see improvements in that way. And if we look at the scoring of this, so this is the female scorecard, and let's say we've got a female who is, let's say 78, and they were able to do 20 repetitions. So they are going to be above average for their age and gender. And when you purchase the senior fitness test manual, it actually goes even further. It tells them not only below average or above, it tells them what percentile they are for their age and gender. So we can get even more nitty gritty on, are they on the low side of average, middle, or the higher side. Next one is the chair sit and reach. So this is to assess lower body flexibility. And with this photo, I tried to get someone who was sitting up as tall as possible, but that's a really key point about this test is they want to come all the way to the front of their chair, keep their posture nice and tall. They're going to lean forward from the hips, and they're going to stack their hands one on top of the other and reach toward their toe, trying to keep that tall posture as they do it, not hunching over. And the way this gets scored is if they can reach their toe exactly, they get 0. And that's a good thing. 0 is a good thing. If they can go past their toe, we would measure it in inches, +1, +2, +3, +4. If they couldn't quite make it to the toe, then we're going to do a negative for the distance. So maybe it's -3 inches from the toe. Okay, I'm gonna pause there and see how we're doing, if we've got any questions. I think we're okay. Everyone's staying with me and you're excited to maybe start some outcome-based fitness testing with your participants. So let's carry on here. So here's an example of the male score sheet. So as you can see, we've got the negative, it talks about 0. So for example, if we look at 75 to 79, and the 0 would fall right there between -4 and +2. So that would put them into the average category. Next, we have the back scratch test. So this is to assess upper body flexibility. And with this one, just as the photo shows, they put one hand over their shoulder and one hand behind their back. And what they're trying to do is touch those fingers together. Once again, if they touch, if they've got a score of 0, if they overlap, they're going to get a positive score. And if they're not quite there, they're going to get a negative score. And they can try it on both sides for both the seated reach and also the back scratch, and you can take the better of the two, but you also want to, just for progress sake, you want to score both and see maybe perhaps they want to work on just their right shoulder flexibility because their right shoulder is not as flexible, and hopefully we could see improvements on that as we go through the test. So once again, you see here the scoring and where everything falls. Next one is the 8-foot up and go, and this is used to assess agility. And so with this one, the participant begins in a seated position, and then they're going to walk a distance of 8 feet and then return to the chair. Now in the photo, it does show a picture of a pylon. I do prefer to put a piece of painter's tape on the floor just as a way to reduce the hazard of tripping. When I do this test with participants, I would stand near the pylon on this side that they're going to turn on. That way, if they do get to any trouble as they're making that turn, I'm kind of there. I've never had to actually catch anyone. I think there's been a time or two where I've kind of stepped forward and been like, ooh, are they going down? And everyone's been fine. So that's great. They do this 2 times. So they sit, I say on your mark, get set, go. They stand up, I time them, they sit down. So let's say their score was 5.3 seconds. I then say, okay, that was pretty good. Can you beat it? On your mark, get set, go, and they're going to try again. If they get 5.1, they get the score for 5.1. And with this test, it is like a hastened fast pace. We don't just want them to just do a leisurely walk around the pylon. We do want to see how agile they are. And then with this, you're going to do the time to the nearest 1/10 of a second. So if we look at the results here, let's say we have a awesome 93-year-old individual and they got it done in 6 seconds, then they are going to be just on the cusp of above average. Also with this test, important to note that if your participant uses a walker or a cane, they must use that walking aid for this test. And just from personal experience, your participants will sometimes fight you on it. Typically how it goes is, oh, let me try without it. Nope, you can't. I need you to use your walker. Oh, let me just try. Sometimes 5 or 6 times, but stick to your guns. By the 5 or 6 times they do give up, and really it's a safety thing, especially if they're rounding that pylon. That's why I really like to use the piece of tape. That can be where things get tricky, so safety is always first. We'll make a note that they used a walker for the test, and sometimes, the real reason people don't like to use the walker is it is hard when they're sitting back in the chair, when they're turning their body around to sit in the chair. It does add a bit of time to that, but that's okay, because over time we're going to continue to have them use that walker as long as they're using it every day as a gait aid, and we should still see the improvements. Next, we have the 6-minute walk or the 2-minute step test. So you've got two options here, and this is used to assess aerobic endurance. Or cardiovascular endurance, so heart and lungs working together. And what you're going to do is, if you have a track, or so when I was in community fitness, I used to do this on a big track. When I was doing this in senior living, we had a hallway that was circular, so I'd have them walk around that hallway. And this is where it's great to invest in a measuring wheel. You can get a measuring wheel off of Canadian Tire, Amazon, and it's actually really good for walking clubs as well, because you can measure out various distances and do different challenges based on the measured distance. So you can do it a couple ways. Sometimes I've just walked behind the individual with the measuring stick, just making sure that you're not chasing the person. Sometimes they'll hasten their pace or be pushed to go walk a little faster because they feel you're behind them. So it's good to stay a ways back and really allow them to set the pace for you walking. And then also you give them time updates. Okay, 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. Once again, I would caution, don't update them too regularly. If you update them every 30 seconds, it is going to feel like the longest 6 minutes of their life. Okay, I have many seniors who can attest to that. I've had some people who even said, I'm going to just bring my music with me as I walk, and I don't even want to know until it's 5 seconds until we're done how much time we have left. So that's a little tip or trick for you to try. The other option is, if you really don't have any suitable space for them to walk around, is you can do the 2-minute step test. And with this, you're counting how many times the knees come to a 90-degree angle. So towards the end of the 2 minutes, if the individual is getting tired from lifting the knees, you have to kind of say, yeah, get them up to up to the knees, up to that 90-degree angle, because only those ones count. A couple things to coach with that one is really engaging through the core, because lifting the knees comes from our hip flexors, also our core, and of course our legs. But they may find, if they're arching their back, not using their abdominals, they may get a bit of a sore back with this test. Okay. All right. Back over here. Okay. Now, spelling mistake there. Oops. So not the 4-Stag balance test, the 4-stage balance test. So this is not a part of the senior fitness test, but it's one I do like, and it's to help measure balance. So if you joined me for part 2 last week, and actually I think we talked about this in part 1 as well, standing on one leg, standing on tandem stance, one foot in front of the other, those are balance stances used to measure balance. But we will typically do coordination exercises, things like ladder ball, beanbag toss, aerobics, dancing, walking, things that functionally help an individual to improve their balance. But then a great way to measure if they're making improvements is to do the 4-stage balance test. So first things first, they're just going to stand feet together, not holding on to anything if they can, and they're going to try to hold that for 10 seconds. If they do that, you go on to the next stage, which is semi-tandem. So they're going to kind of put their heel next to the side of their foot, near the arch of their foot. If that works for 10 seconds, then they're going to go to tandem stance. If that's still good, they're going to go to single leg stance. And so basically you'd get to the the one where they stop, and that's where you're going to stop. And so let's say in this individual's case, they got to tandem stance and they got to 8 seconds. So that's where we would stop the test and we'd say, awesome, you're at the tandem stance stage. And when we reassess you a few months or a few weeks from now, depending on your program, then we want to see that that number improves, and maybe now you're on to the standing on one foot. Okay. So just a couple of the benefits of outcome-based programming. You might be thinking, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work to fitness test every one of my participants, but it's really, really valuable information in terms of program effectiveness. You may think you have a great program, and knowledge is power. So when you start to assess your participants and you realize, oh, I assessed them and 3 months later I assessed them again, and most of them got decline. Most of them went down. So if that's the case, again, naturally, every human starting at around age 25 loses 1% of their aerobic and strength per year, unless you're taking part in physical activity to maintain that aerobic capacity and strength. So yes, if you're not doing the right things with your participants, you are going to see a decline. So this is where you think, okay, I'm seeing a decline in everyone. That means there might be something wrong with my program or something I need to do better. So it's really great for you as a fitness instructor or recreation individual. The next is it helps you to create those really goal-specific recommendations for your participants. So when you know where they are in their physical journey, you can then make recommendations to help them reach their goals. Or maybe it's just you want to help every single one of your participants reach Canada's physical activity guidelines, or you want them all to be in the average category. So let's say you go through the senior fitness test and everything looks great except the 6-minute walk. Maybe that wasn't, that was in the below average category. You can then tailor the plan to the individual to say, hey, you really got to start coming to our walking group. That's going to help you increase that 6-minute walk score. And that is a motivator. I have found in every single instance of conducting this test, like I said, with over 300 seniors, they were so excited to get their results. They were competitive with their peers. Oh, what did you get? Oh, I got this on that. And especially I've done even group settings. Typically most of the assessments I did were just one-on-one because we don't want to put people on the spot. But in the few times we actually did them in a group, people were even more motivated to push themselves and to really see where their physical fitness was. So again, many benefits for you on the programming side and for them on the fitness side of it as well. So that is our half an hour together. Thank you for joining me. I don't think I saw any questions in the different platforms, but if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in there and then I can come back to them later. And you can always feel free to reach out to me as well, Emily@StrongerYouSeniorFitness.com. If you'd like some support or some help with starting to do some fitness testing at your organization, definitely reach out to me. It's something that I'm really passionate about, is that outcome-based programming. And we are going to have a break next week, so no Art of Senior Fitness program design next week, but we will be back on the following Friday. And I'm again excited for that session because we are going to talk about strength training, okay? I think we're going to just focus on upper body strength training next week, and then the following week after that, 2 weeks from now, and then the following week after that, we'll focus on lower body. So we'll see. I want to make sure I don't rush through things. So thank you everyone for joining me today. Have a wonderful remainder of your Friday, and I hope you'll join me in 2 weeks' time to talk about strength training. Have a wonderful day, everyone.